Hello guys, I'm Fizzy and welcome back to another league race in the AOR. PC Split 1 League on F1 2016. We are still in Season 12 of the Japanese Grand Prix, 5 races to go. I am lagging behind on these videos, considering the next season, Season 13, is already starting this week. So I definitely have some catching up to do in the coming days to try and get through this season of videos. But as you can see, we are in Japan and it's very wet. So 2 minutes left of qualifying and it's been wet all session long. Heavy rain tires on the car as we throw it into the first corner on our final qualifying lap in the session. Currently, provisionally, going into this lap we are sitting in P6 on the grid. And to be honest, when it comes to wet qualifying sessions, I never have too high expectations because I don't feel like I'm usually particularly confident in the wet conditions. But of course, still going into this lap trying to give it my best, even though I'm missing the apex a little bit through the final part of the SS here. The lap so far very close to my previous best in the session, pretty much matching it at the moment. Getting a better exit out of there though, getting about a 10th or so going into the Zegner turns, and now just about managing to keep it on the track there. Hitting the apex on the second one, but not managing to carry as much speed as I really would have liked, dropping that 10th back compared to my previous best lap. Had a bit of wheel spin there as well, a bit of oversteer that I had correct. And now running a little bit deep through the hairpin, dropping another half a 10th or so. But at least I'm managing to get a good exit as a result of it, controlling the traction pretty nicely there to actually regain that whole 10th that I lost through the second part of the Degners. We have dropped down to 7th place provisionally during this lap so far as we throw it into Spoon Curve, missing the first part of it slightly and also missing the second part of it slightly. But again, the most crucial part here is to try and nail the exit, and again we've done the traction zone better than what we did on the previous lap we set. So we are still a little bit up as we head towards 130R into dry. Of course, this corner is easily flat out in these cars, but we have to lift off slightly in these rainy conditions as we now brake hard into the final chicane, only applying about 50% brake pressure in these conditions, so obviously no ABS enabled in these leagues, and no traction control either, of course, which means we're going to be struggling over the bumps there towards the line, but we managed to control that nicely and gaining 2 tenths on our previous lap as we crossed the line with a 1:49.220 to take us up to P5 on the grid. We did have time to try and set one more lap in the session, but as you can see, through the first Degner there, just went way too deep. I was still a little bit up though on the time actually, getting a pretty decent exit out of there. Obviously that's one of the corners we struggled on the other lap, but then into the hairpin, just yeah, that's not how you take that. The apex is on the old side of the track, to be honest. So unfortunately, there were definitely a few tenths to find, but I threw that one away. But as you can see, the gap to Massa, the next car in front, was 5 tenths. I think it would have been hard to get another position anyway. Gap behind me, though, very close, down to Ryan in 9th. Only 1/10 or so between us. And as we move into the race, it's also wet, slightly less wet. There is intermediate tire conditions according to the strategy screen. So light rain to start off the race, but as you could see on that weather forecast above the strategy there, only the first out of the 6 or so weather icons actually showed rain, which would suggest that it is going to dry up not too long into the race. So then, time for the race, starting from P7, pretty happy with that qualifying, to be honest, considering especially what was wet. And now the lights are out and away we go. Can we nail the traction off the line? We have definitely gotten a better exit than Massa in the Sauber on our right. Non-runner behind though, getting a very good launch. But we have, at least for now, gained P4 into turn 1, leaving a bit of space on both the apexes there, just in case Massa still had part of his car alongside. But looking back, you can see that we have gained that position on the Sauber. So good start from us up to P4 as Nick Bien Afro is battling for second up ahead after losing out on that particular occasion with Tirano Tigger, of course, getting pole and trying to streak away as he's done so many times this season. But for us, it's all about trying to settle into a rhythm here, trying to not get flustered by the fast cars behind. Obviously Massa and non-runner, two really fast guys. I know Marek is back there as well, but all I can do is try and do my best here as we exit the Degners on the first lap, trying to find the grip in the traction zone. We haven't gotten the best exit though, carrying not too much speed, and Massa challenging us a little bit. I felt the need to go defensive there just because of how much of a better exit he managed to get, but despite the tighter line we have still managed to keep hold of that position. But already the story of the stint is starting to unfold. The top 3 pulling away already over a second of a gap up to Afro after the first lap in the race, while the cars behind are still very, very close. But at least we are still in P4, although it might not last long if you're going to miss the apex through turn 1. Massa now on the inside, coming through turn 2 even, and still side by side, but luckily again we have been better on the traction there to cover him off into the S's. But you can just look at the minimap and see the gap to the top 3 starting to increase, and then behind me there's an almighty fizzy train, which isn't going to be helped as well by the fact that I'm drifting through turn 2 now on lap 3, and then whoopsie daisy, that's a warning for track limits there at through Dagnus as well on the same lap, and again getting a poor exit out of there. Massa very, very close behind. Is he going to try and go up the inside? He is a little bit, didn't really intend to go that deep anyway though, and again just hustling the wheel on the exit. Massa still pretty much side by side, but again he has to concede in the traction zone, and it's almost comical looking at the minimap, comparing the gap to the cars ahead and then looking at the train that is behind me at the moment. Pretty much the whole field bar a couple of cars sitting there in the train, so it is definitely a fizzy train time here at the Japanese Grand Prix. But despite that though, 4 further laps passed without me getting past, but then lap 7 I got another warning for track limits. And obviously those of you who know this game will know that if you get 3 warnings you get a 3-second penalty. Yes, now through the hairpin on lap 8 we've gone mightily deep as well, and again a similar story, Massa getting alongside, but we have nailed him in the traction zone as usual. But yeah, definitely not ideal for us, especially in these conditions, to have 2 warnings already this early in the race, and not ideal to run this wide through turn 1 either. Oh, not gonna find much grip out here. Oh, and we're completely struggling to get the throttle down as well. Back and forth with the wheel. Massa has gone through. Non-runner even has managed to sneak through there in the exit of 2, and that was all because of my own mistake, of course. Just a little bit too late on the brakes into the first corner, a little bit off the apex as well. I managed to stay ahead of of the train for 8 full laps, but at the start of lap 9 it just was a little bit too much, which means that Massa and non-runner now has been given the opportunity to run away if they have the pace for it, although Massa now making a similar mistake to me at the start of the next lap, not quite as much of the circuit compared to what I was, but non-runner is going to try to actually go around the outside him through the first part of the essence, but Massa doing well to carry the momentum there and hold on to that. Non-runner forced to back out of it. But interestingly, the next car behind me now is Ryan, my old co-op teammate of course, a man I've had many battles with over the years, and here comes another one, as I made a complete hash of the entry to the Dagners, and Ryan on the inside through the second part, side by side going towards the hairpin. But again, in these situations I seem to just find the necessary grip in the traction zone, which means that I managed to cover Ryan off for now, unless he can get a better exit with a wider entry, but it doesn't seem like he's able to do that at the moment, so we remain ahead of him going into 130R, and we haven't dropped too much time to Massa and non-runner either, to be honest. Although Ryan now going to go for a dive into the chicane. Oh, that's very late on the race for him. Oh, and non-runner didn't see him coming. Not that you'd blame him, to be honest, because he was not the car that Ryan was trying to overtake there. He tried to just overtake me, I would imagine, but Ryan has gone spinning around as a result of tapping the rear tire of the Williams, and that has dropped him a lot of time behind. Next car behind me now is Marek in the Red Bull, who is also very, very fast. Kalon, unfortunately, retiring from the session, a man we've had a lot of battles with this season, but we haven't seen him on the track today for once. And while I was busy focusing on him, non-runner has actually made a move on Massa, and Marek has completely caught up to us now as we approach 130R again, approaching it with quite a big lift, tiny dab of the brakes as well, just to avoid understeering on the exit, but still managing to keep enough speed here to remain ahead of Marek. But you have to say, quite surprising though, that at the end of lap 12 it is still wet out on track, considering the weather forecast suggested that it would dry up pretty early on. And you can see we are starting to struggle with the tires as well, as again we are going a bit defensive into the hairpin now. Marek looking to the outside, looking for potentially a cutback out of the corner, but we have done enough in the traction zone, as there was a yellow flag there briefly. Not sure what that was for, but here again it's a yellow flag through 130R, and that would be because Nick B in the manor is sitting at the side of the track. He was of course one of those 3 cars that were running off at the start of the race, but he has had some sort of nightmare towards the end of this lap, which is going to be frustrating for him of course, because it looked like he was really strong around this circuit in these conditions. And let's have a listen.
Conditions to remain dry for a while. We will update you if the outlook changes. We think there's a viable strategy change available to us. Would you like to keep to
Okay, so the engineer says that it will still remain dry for a while. So according to him, it is actually dry out on track right now, which visually you wouldn't say is completely accurate. But usually when the engineer says that, and especially when he also says it's time for a strategy change, it is usually time to switch onto the dry tires very soon, as Massa has had a complete problem through the exit of Spoon. Oh, and it's going really, really slowly. He must have had a puncture there, which has allowed both me and Marek to slip through easily on him. So yeah, the tires are absolutely going off front right on 74%. That is puncture territory, which Massa very much noticed. So we have decided to go into the pits at the end of the lap, and because of that message from the engineer, I've decided to take the plunge onto the slick compound tires, because surely, when the engineer thinks it's dry on track, it means that it's, even if it's not completely dry just yet, it is surely going to be dry in just a moment. And I did see in the timing in the top left as well that Tyranno Tigger, the race leader, was also on the medium tires, which gave me a bit of a relief. But then Nick B came flying down the pit straight, still on the intermediates, and Marek behind, also choosing to go onto intermediates. So now I really have no clue whether this is the right choice or not. Let's see what kind of grip we can find now through the S's on lap 16. And oh, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. Just can't get a car turning, and Marek's just flown through with absolute ease. Oh dear lord, has the engineer completely confused us in this situation? It does look like it at the moment, because this is not the conditions that are fully suitable for slick tires. And
considering switching to an alternate strategy. Do you want to change or stick to plan A?
oh, piss off, you confusing engineer knobhead. Now he's saying it's another alternate strategy, so he's probably wanting me to get back on the intermediates again. This guy just ain't helping in the slightest, but I made a decision to stay out on the slick tires, just waiting for the track to dry up. But it was not until lap 22, you can see Marek now ahead has also switched onto the dry tires, soft compound tires for him. But seriously, it took 7 laps from when the engineer said that it was a dry track until it actually was properly time for the dry tires. So yeah, I don't think I'm the only one who got confused there, because Tigger, Massa, other people as well also went early onto the slicks, as now some knobhead has taken out the braking boards for the chicane. That's very helpful as well. Obviously, those of you who might be used to driving this game with the racing line will not be aware of the struggles of someone taking out braking boards for a corner, but that is the absolute worst thing, the most annoying thing you can imagine when you are depending on those for figuring out where to brake. As now we are on lap 26, we got a lap and a half to go, and suddenly Massa Shawset is right behind us again. Deja vu, is how you say it? Deja vu, to the first stint of the race. And of course we were in a similar situation. That time it was wet though, but suddenly Massa was super fast, flying on those hard tires, and then the freaking braking boards have ruined the chicane for us again, and that has allowed Massa to slip through on that hard combat tire. Chicane also directly behind, also on the hards. And although my mediums weren't too worn, to be honest, these guys in the last few laps have just had so much more pace for whatever reason, and I really had no clue why, as now look at how much more grip Chicane was able to find through the first corner. Suddenly had his full car alongside out of nowhere into turn 2, as now we're trying to stay side by side with him, and that hasn't worked, has it? It's all falling apart here at the end of the race. We now have to wait for Ram in the Mercedes to go past as well, to not ram into the side of him. That's funny. But yeah, that's really, really annoying. It was looking like a very solid race. If I finished in the top 6, I would have been very happy with that. But now instead, I'm leaving this race just with an annoyed feeling because of that incident. Directly afterwards, I was kind of blaming Chicane for that. In hindsight, I probably blame him and myself 50-50, because although I would have appreciated him leaving a little bit more room on the apex there, it was also probably overly optimistic for me to try and stay side by side with him there to hold on to that position. So in the end, a disappointing 9th place. It was looking good until the last 2 laps, and as you can see, I'm leaving the session straight away after looking at the results. Frustrating end to the race, but at least some positives to take, I guess. Obviously, the fact that I qualified 5th in the wet, and was running quite high up for a long part of the race. Just a shame that it wasn't to be right until the end. Still holding on to 3rd though in the Driver Championship, but Nick B making strides here today, up past Marco into 4th. Marco and Nukke both having bad days as well, as we have 4 rounds remaining of the season. Construction Championship, Renault still holding on to 2nd, but only by 1 single point. Obviously, my teammate also did score us 1 point here today, but a non-runner is really on form at the moment, and he's pulling Williams up towards us, and it really is going to be hard to keep hold of this second place in the championship, especially with the Red Bull there right behind as well. Mercedes and Manor are equal on points, also not out of touching distance either, so still things to fight for in the last few races. Next week we have got the United States Grand Prix at Kota. I say next week, hopefully the video will be out much earlier than that. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed the race here today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, hopefully very soon, for the United States Grand Prix. Goodbye.